Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a safe place for leading with your heart. Hey, thanks for being here. You, Me, Empathy is the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective, a collaborative mental health community designed to empower each of us to grow our capacity for empathy, vulnerability, and emotional wayfinding. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. No one is just a silly boy with a feely heart. You can support the show by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts, following us on social media at Yumi Empathy and Feely Human, and joining the Feely Human Collective community at feelyhuman.co. And now your host, Known Wells.
Hello, Feely Humans. Welcome to another episode of You, Me, Empathy. My name is Known Wells, and this is episode 165 on toxic productivity, burnout, and rest with my guest, Emily McDowell. Emily is the founder of M & Friends, formerly called Emily McDowell & Friends. Very successful business that sells pins and cards and a bunch of fun, joyful, sarcastic, beautiful, empathetic stuff. Really love it. I really love Emily. Really love this conversation. I think you will too. We talk about capitalism and burnout in business and achieving our way into a false sense of joy and discovering the space to rest, pause, and take care of our mental health, which is something that Emily had to figure out on her own recently. And really grateful to dig into that. We talk about menopause and social media and empathy in Trump's world and changing M & Friends from the business, from her voice, Emily's voice, the I, to a brand voice, the we. We talk about going beyond talk therapy to yoga and spiritual practices, living on Quest bars and Starbucks for 7 years, and so much more. Really loved this wayward conversation. Really loved chatting with M & Friends founder Emily McDowell. And a fun thing, for you, Feely Humans, for you, Me Empathy listeners, you can get 25%. That's 25% off the M & Friends and Knock Knock websites. Knock Knock is the sister brand of M & Friends under the Who's There group. And if you go to mandfriends.com or knockknockstuff.com and use the code YOUME, Y-O-U-M-E, no spaces, YOUME, you get 25% off. 25% off. That's awesome. I really love the M & Friends Empathy collection. There's great empathy cards. Obviously, that's close to my heart, but there's so many good things. Please go over to mandfriends.com and knockknockstuff.com. Check it out. Use the code YOUME and get 25% off your order on those websites. Please do that. Support these wonderful businesses putting out joy and empathy and sweetness into the world. Okay, before we get to the episode, though, I wanted to remind you that I'm on Patreon at patreon.com/feelyhuman. And the next Zoom, usually it's for $10 and up supporters. The next Zoom hang is going to be for everyone. So anyone $5 and up supporters at patreon.com/feelyhuman. We're doing that on February 24th at 2 p.m. Pacific time. We're talking about Vulnerability 101. So if you go to patreon.com/feelyhuman and sign up to be a supporter, you can join that Zoom, Vulnerability 101, on February 24th at 2 p.m. And also you can check out recent bonus episodes like one on my sobriety with my friend Danae Logan. You can check out a recent one on connection and goals with Jess Springle and a bunch of other stuff. So check that out at patreon.com/feelyhuman. And the last thing I'll say is thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm recording this on Valentine's Day, so hope you know that you are loved and worthy of being loved, and remember, self-care is love too. So thank you for your big heart. Thank you for listening to the show and supporting me and the work I do. Check out feelyhuman.co for collaborative stuff and my workshop and other things like that. Make sure to follow this show on Instagram at YouMeEmpathy and follow Feely Human at Feely Human. And last thing I'll say is I was a recent guest on new pal Sarah Crossley's show, Kinda Okay Feelcast. So search for Kinda Okay on Apple and you can see my episode there. Sarah is a delight and I really enjoyed the conversation. So check that out. And I guess that about does it. Don't forget, get 25% off mandfriends.com and knockknockstuff.com with the code YouMe. And please enjoy this wonderful conversation with the wonderful Emily McDowell on toxic productivity, burnout, and rest. Enjoy.
La la la, you, me, empathy, yeah, la la la.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective. On this show, we explore the struggles, the triumphs, the brights and the darks we face as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our mental health, our neuroses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being feely humans. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I am overjoyed to be doing a fucking great job, to be here with someone who's also doing a fucking great job. She's writer, illustrator, and founder of Emily McDowell and Friends. It's Emily McDowell. Hello.
Hi.
Hey there. How are you?
I am pretty good, actually. I mean, that's a really tough question to answer in 2020 because I feel like, like nothing actively bad is happening to me right now. So, on a relative scale, I'm pretty great.
Well, that's good, and that's good context, I think, too. Let's jump right into it because, like, we always kick off the show, Emily, with an emotional check-in. Let's unpack that a little bit. How are you feeling, really?
I am feeling really. Actually, I'm feeling pretty all right. I just, as we record this, it is December 18th, so I have just finished my 2 busiest months of the year.
Right.
And so that felt good. I turned in a lot of art over the last few days, completing a lot of projects for 2021. And then also our holiday shipping cutoff just happened. So all of the marketing, I oversee all the marketing for my brand and our sister brand Knock Knock. And so that is it can be overwhelming in fourth quarter. So both as a recipient of of everybody's marketing and of the generator of marketing. So all of that is behind us, which is lovely. And I'm looking at a couple of weeks of slowing down, which feels really good. And my boyfriend and I are going to adopt some cats next week.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm really excited. This is the longest I've gone. It's been a year almost that I haven't had a cat. And this is the longest I've gone in my adult life. catless. So I'm really happy to be getting some again.
Emily needs cats.
Emily plus cats equals
Emily.
mental health. Yeah.
There
for
you go.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And I don't, the small business or just the business around this time of year, and especially, the business you run, it's both like exhilarating, like just observing it as a consumer, but also I feel like I empathize, or I guess it's sympathy for like the hecticness of this time of year. I mean, I think of like all of the, Christmas movies, and it's just like, it's like that, right? Like people running around frantically trying to get the things and get them on time. And this year more than ever, I keep seeing pictures of, postal service, warehouses just chock full of things. And
Yeah, it is. It's always challenging. But this year, especially, just because the volume of packages going through the postal service is something like, 5 times or more what it is designed for.
right.
And we saw all the cuts to the postal service at the same time. And so those guys are all working as hard as they can, and there just isn't enough. The pipes aren't big enough, and, we tried, as all businesses did and small businesses, to set expectations with customers and say, like, if you order after like December 11th, you might not get it, and, try to be super clear about it. But people are really trained by Amazon. And so, this over the last 5 years, I've really seen the acceleration of people expecting things to ship out the next day and expecting things to arrive in 2 days and expecting like just that window shortening, as it's kind of like the Amazonification of online shopping. And it's, I'm not Jeff Bezos and we're not Amazon and we can't do that. And so it's definitely like this time of year is just, I really feel for our customer service team, because they're working as hard as they can. And it is like, it's not a lot of positive reinforcement, because what they hear is everyone who doesn't like something, like everyone who's mad at the mail, basically is their, we're the recipient of that email. So it's like, we're trying, but like, we can't, if the tracking, like, the tracking isn't working, like all of that stuff. And it's like, it goes into the postal system, and it's kind of like go with God this year, because we unfortunately can't fix it. So anyway, it'll be, I really feel for postal workers and delivery workers right now, because it is a rough time to be those guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's interesting, the Amazonification stuff. We as humans, it's like when we experience something that feels like quote unquote greater or better or faster, that's what we do. We just like expect that's how things should be. But that seems like we don't, I guess I was going to say we don't do that like on a human to human level, but I think we kind of do, and it's problematic.
Yeah.
Because we're all unique creatures, right? We're all like unique businesses. We have fewer people. Like comparing Emily McDowell and Friends to the way, billionaire, I was going to call him a monster, but billionaire Jeff Bezos like does things isn't fair.
Totally. And, it's, I think it also just really represents the attitude of like productivity at all cost, and like bigger, better, faster, more, that we all get indoctrinated into as, growing up in this country and in this culture. And that capitalism really like that sort of, the bigger equals better, faster equals better, productivity equals better, and it spills over into tying our own worth with our productivity and like all kinds of stuff. And I think it all kind of comes from the same place.
Yeah. I rail against it as often as I can. Because it does, speaking from a mental health perspective, it does so much damage on the mental health level. Just it doesn't allow for the rest. It doesn't allow for the curiosity. It doesn't allow for just the pausing we need as humans.
Right. And like pausing is what life is, like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it doesn't allow for the humaning.
Yeah.
It just turns you into a machine. That and it's really insidious. I definitely in my own life, the last couple years of my existence have been about unlearning a lot of that and undoing a lot of habits that I created over, a 20-year career, because I really hit a wall of where I reached the end of the road. Like I had this business that from the outside, people were like, "Oh my God, your life must be so great." And I just was like, I couldn't enjoy it. I just couldn't find joy in it anymore. I was so burned out and so tired, and just so needed to step off that wheel, and focus on some different things. And the last couple years, I sort of hit a wall at the end of 2017, and then 2018 was in kind of trying to figure it out. And then it's been sort of a slow process of recalibrating my own expectations for myself and what my life looks like, and just kind of how to exist and be and have the job I have and do what I do, but also not be pushing myself as the way that I once believed I had to push myself.
Yeah. Were you always kind of like a push yourself, go getter type of person?
Overachiever type? Yeah. For sure. I learned really early that that was a way for me to get positive feedback and attention, was by being by like excelling at whatever.
Sure.
And being smart and being, sort of achieving my way to joy, was really what I saw as the pathway to happiness. It turns out that's totally not possible. At least it wasn't for me. And if it is for anyone, I would like to meet that person, and find out.
Was that being validated like by family members?
Yeah, it was being validated by family members, by just kind of the world at large. I was always insecure about my looks. I was insecure about, kind of other, like I didn't have a lot of confidence in certain areas. And so the things that I could be good at, when I was a kid, it was academics, and the things that I got praised for, I tended to really lean into, and kind of constructed an identity around being, as good at those things as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't blame you. I mean, I think like that's what we do as kids. We're riddled with insecurities and fallibilities, and I know I grasped onto the things that felt like safe and singular. They're all very singular. It's such a human experience, and then it takes it takes the unlearning. It takes the burnout or the running into walls to like, okay, I need to take a step back here for a moment and just reassess.
For sure.
What did that, like, when you started recalibrating, what were the kinds of things that you were like specifically unlearning and coming face to face with? Because I'd imagine that, coming to, doing it for as long as you had, and then coming to this place of, gosh, I'm just burnt out. Like, there had to have been a certain sense of like ignoring of your own heart and your self-care and your own, listening to your body, things like that.
Yeah, there was a huge ignoring for many years. And I remember even saying to a friend at one point, like, I'll feel my feelings when I get through this season, because she was like,
Mm, yeah.
I had had some real ups and downs with the company and been through some really difficult, like if there were a few really, really difficult things that happened back in 2016, 2017. And, I didn't have the time at the time to process any of my feelings around what had happened because I was purely in problem solving mode as the CEO and sole owner. I was responsible and I felt just this enormous weight of responsibility for, the 7 employees I had at the time, or the 14 employees between my office and our warehouse, and and then the warehouse full of millions of dollars of product, and the warehouse we'd built, and it was just this. It was a feeling like I needed to just act and act and act in order to keep the company afloat. And so I felt like feeling my feelings at the time was not an indulgence that I could take advantage of. And it really felt that way, and like I knew that it wasn't healthy. And at the same time, I really didn't see like a way that I could do it differently at that time. And ultimately, ultimately I really hit a point where I knew that I had to make a major change. And so I ended up joining forces with a company called Knock Knock. That's now our sister brand at the end of 2017. So it's just about 3 years ago, where I essentially sold. We merged, and they were a much more established gift company, publisher, similar products, but a totally different brand and different strengths. They don't do greeting cards. They do other stuff. And they had a much more established wholesale program and division, and their revenue was about 4 times what ours was. And they were founded by a friend of mine who's now my business partner. And so that decision, in which I became an equity partner in the joint company. So gave up sole ownership of my brand, but I'm now an equity partner in the joint company, means that I now have 3 business partners and run the 2 companies together. We have 1 staff and 1 office with the 2 separate brands. And that decision was what enabled me to really begin this process of shifting my day-to-day life and shifting shifting my level of responsibility and the number of things on my plate. And if I hadn't made that shift, I would have made I would have changed something else really drastically about the business model. Maybe given up our wholesale entirely, or, I would have drastically simplified it in some way. But so there was that physical component of, okay, now you have, business partners and a bigger support system. But then there was also in me just the unlearning of like, do I need to be the public face of something? Do I need to be, like I had the belief that, this company won't survive if I'm not, out there on Instagram every day, if I'm not being the public face of this thing, if I'm not engaging directly with our customers, if I'm not doing this. And like, and to be honest, I mean, I love our customers, but I'm an introvert, and doing that kind of one-to-many type of interaction is really depleting for me. Like it's, I love and appreciate our audience, and it's also like not in my nature. To want
you can hold both of those,
in that way with hundreds of thousands of people. And I sort of became an accidental influencer. Like I wasn't, I use the word influencer in quotes, like it's, I don't see myself in that way, but that's people refer to me as that. And I'm like, I guess, but this wasn't, it was the work that I was doing, people were responding to. It's not like pictures of me on a beach. The funny thing is that like every time I posted a picture of myself, we would lose like 1,000 followers. It's like, great.
Wow, that's odd.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I mean, people, really people like, I don't know, people follow, I'm not sure. I can't really, I know that a lot of people, follow our social media account because they like repost, they think the things that we write and post and make are funny, and they like to repost them and they sort of turn into memes.
Sure.
And so like, a picture of me is not a meme. So take that for what it's worth. But
yeah, I mean, it happens. Like Jamila Jamil, for instance, like she's posting about, her show or whatever. And then she posts something political, and then people get upset because, she's this
stick to stay in your lane,
Yeah, whatever. And I think that's
totally
unfairness. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that too. And it's just, we're not designed, like, as human beings, we are not designed to engage with an audience of hundreds of thousands or millions of people directly the way that we do on social media, where it's like one person to many in that way. Like, that to me feels like a very sort of artificial construction. Like, this is not how we're meant to engage with each other as humans. And it means that you can't, it's this very strange thing where when you follow someone, you feel like you know them, but you don't know them. You know whatever they've chosen to share about themselves on social media, but that's not actually knowing them.
Right.
And it's very strange. It's very, very odd, and I think it's wonderful in a lot of ways. And I'm really grateful for it. I mean, social media built our business. We didn't have any budget for advertising. But at the same time, it's a really odd dichotomy. Like, it's just the one to many thing is and the way in which social influence is wielded now as like cultural capital is really strange to me. Anyway, so just the mentally me giving myself permission to shift my identity and like shift away from that, and to also say to myself, like, who are you without the, like, who are, are you going to be, are you going to be cool with yourself without, is this feeding you? Is this attention you need? Like, are you going to be, are you going to feel like you're missing something? Are you going to feel like you're missing out if you step back from this? And, if you're not kind of out involved, and so it was just kind of a leap into the unknown, for me in a bunch of different ways when I shifted, my relationship to the brand.
Yeah, I mean, I could so empathize with the, the big passion of like the things that we love doing, and we pour ourselves into them, and then that moment of like, what am I without this? Is all of my value wrapped up in this thing, right? And it becomes part of our identity, and we do, like, I think it is important. I'm so grateful you got there. We do have to disentangle a little bit and have boundaries, have space, have all these things. Did you ever see the movie, when you were talking, it made me think of it, Baby Boom?
I did, but I haven't for like 37 years. I think I saw it when it came out. But
I mean, it's a little silly, but like, it's Diane Keaton.
Yeah.
She's high power executive, business suits and all that. And, she like has to make a like drastic life decision and business career change, right? Because she's bestowed this baby, and she moves to like Vermont, and she makes, baby food and stuff. And it's I don't know, it's sweet. I have a fondness for it. And it made me, you talking about how you had to kind of shift your mindset, like made me think about it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting. I came from a career in advertising before starting Emily McDowell and Friends. And so I had about 10 years of experience working at ad agencies and working at kind of big, competitive ad agencies where you worked crazy hours. And you worked on holidays and you worked on weekends and, you pulled all nighters. And so I came from, and I'm now 45. So I had 20 years of career experience of working, 80-hour weeks. And part of the reason I left advertising was because I got really burned out. And, the irony is that I created something for myself that was equally, if not more, involved and required, an equal, if not, it required more of me than my jobs did. And so this has been like a drastic, like for the first time in my adult life, this year I learned how to cook and I've been cooking dinner like 6 nights a week. And
wow,
this is for me is like, it's like, it feels so silly to say it, but it's like a drastic shift for me. I mean, I lived on like, Quest bars and Starbucks for like 7 years. Like it and takeout, and I would get home from work, whether it was an agency job or at, my own office at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And I just like the last thing I wanted to do was cook. And so I just didn't, and I moved from LA to Portland right at the beginning of the pandemic. And have just really slowed down in a combination of, finally being in a role with the company where I'm still working full time, but I'm not working extra. And I'm now, delegating. I'm not the only writer and illustrator. We have several other folks, both in-house and freelance that that I creative direct and I delegate work to. And, so it's not just, so it's not my sole responsibility, to churn out, 100 products a year. And it's really like revelatory to actually have the space to be able to take care of myself and the willingness to do it.
I'm so grateful that you found it. So,
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, do you how has it impacted your mental health, do you think?
Oh my God,
time?
it can't be overstated. Like I feel like a different person. I feel it's also tough because it's been such a stressful year externally. And so much has been, I've been really fortunate on a personal level in that, I've been healthy. Everyone close to me is healthy. And my job is still intact. Our company is still intact. We didn't have to let anybody go. We got a PPP loan. We got through this time. We don't have any brick and mortar locations. And we do, our sister brand Knock Knock does a pretty big business on Amazon, and that really got us through this time. And so it's interesting because just as I'm sort of knocking the Amazonification and sort of trashing it in one breath, and it's really difficult to compete with Amazon on one hand. On the other hand, small businesses do sell to Amazon, and Knock Knock made the decision, back in 2014 that instead of doing their own direct to consumer site and trying to go that route, they would just offer things on Amazon. And that's what kept us in business this year. Wow. we would have probably filed for bankruptcy had that not been the case. And so it's kind of, it's such a double-edged sword, because on one hand, incredibly problematic. And on the other hand, that's where people are shopping, and
Yeah.
it enabled this business to stay alive through this year. So I think, back to your question about mental health, like I think I I think I maybe would have imploded had I tried to do 2020 a lot on top of what I was doing 3 years ago.
Mm.
I think that coming into this year, I was in a much more stable, grounded place than I had been maybe ever as an adult, even as a teenager, like maybe ever. Um, and that really gave me the foundation and like internal strength to be able to deal with um, all of what 2020 has thrown at us.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about like some of the components of that, like, that stability that you found? Because I know for myself,
Sure.
like I'm 39, a little younger than you, but I'm like at a place now where I am like, I mean, I guess there's like some judgment in this statement, but like I am just sort of coming into my own and figuring out like who I am and what fills my heart and all that stuff. And it's hard. It's work. It's exhausting.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I spent 2 years I've been in therapy my whole life, and I think it's incredibly useful tool, and I hate to think of where I would be without it. Um, and then at the same time, in my own personal stuff, I kind of got to a point with traditional therapy where I was like, I felt a little talked out. Like I was like, I know what my stuff is, I know why I have it. And now I'm ready to like not have it anymore. Like it was like I like this has gotten me this far of like untangling and uncovering and figuring out why I am the way I am, and figuring out, all of these like incredibly useful insights. And then it was like, okay, and then what, and now what do I do? And
Mm.
from a place of now, what do I do, kind of sent me down a path a couple years ago of getting really into meditation, getting into breath work, kind of getting to a place where I was learning to inhabit my body, like moving more. I went to Bali for 7 months in 2019 and worked from there. And was able to do that. I've been working remotely for a long time. And so this was just kind of like a extra remote step. And it was critical. You definitely don't have to go to Bali to heal yourself. So if you're listening and you're like, well, I can't freaking go to Bali for 7 months, I hear you. And also none of what I did there can't be done anywhere.
Right.
It's just that I was alone there. I had the work that I needed to do, and then I had virtually nothing else. I didn't have friends. I didn't have a romantic partner there. I didn't have a social life. Like it was just, the purpose of it was learn how to rest, learn how to be in your body, you know, learn how to feel things instead of just living from the neck up.
Mm.
And so, I mean, I filled, I don't know, 6 journals in 2 years. I did so much just sort of like yoga, like yin yoga, which is like a really gentle form of, it's not like vigorous yoga. It's more like opening the spaces in your body and holding stretches for long poses.
Mm.
Meditating, acupuncture. I mean, it was kind of like I kind of, ran a experiment on myself.
You're catching up.
all of the things that I had not done, it was like, and in a lot of ways, it was like, saying yes to a lot of things that I would have discounted before, or, if something made me uncomfortable, I was like, this is a reason for me to do this, and just kind of bypassing my own, like recognizing that my own habitual thinking was what had gotten me into this place of like such deep, crazy burnout. And so usually my first impulse wasn't right. Like usually it was like, okay, learn to note what your first impulse is, and then maybe don't do that. Like maybe do something else. So yeah, it was really, for me, it was kind of going beyond therapy and getting into physical, spiritual practices. I changed the way that I eat, which also made a really big difference for me. I was experiencing a lot of inflammation. And so I had chronic pain for years that no one could figure out the source of. And, doctors were kind of just giving me Vicodin and being like, I don't know, maybe you have fibromyalgia, and like, maybe you have chronic fatigue syndrome, and we don't really know what's wrong with you. And no one could figure it out. And it ended up being a really serious gluten sensitivity. And so doing that, eliminating gluten and perimenopause, like menopause stuff, hit me early and really hard, which is a thing that not a lot of people talk about, but it happens to all women, and no one can really predict how bad your symptoms will be or how long it will last. Like, it's kind of like it lasts from 2 to 10 years, and no one really knows when it starts. And it's, and it typically doesn't start until your mid 40s, but because I had chemo in my 20s, for me, it started earlier, and it was causing all kinds of physical and mental symptoms that were like really disruptive and kind of debilitating. So I ended up eliminating sugar and alcohol, like 2.5 years ago. Yeah. And what's interesting is that I was so sick, like I felt so shitty that it didn't feel hard, which was interesting, because in the past I've tried to do like, sugar detox for 30 days or whatever, and on day 4 I'd be like, nope. And this was just, I had gotten so desperate. I was feeling physically so bad that that it was kind of like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to not feel like this anymore. And so for me, that's been, and I've kept up with that. So it's been about 2.5 years now. And like I have it occasionally, like very occasionally, but it's night and day in terms of kind of my physical symptoms. And so,
do you feel like, sorry. I was just going to say,
like,
go ahead.
Know that I have struggled with lifelong depression. Like I've been on meds my whole life, or since I was 13. Prozac came out when I was 13, and I was put on it right away, and I've been on it ever since. And or on an SSRI. Prozac stopped working, but then Zoloft, and they all work the same. And one of the things I learned, and one of the things that science has learned over the last few years in particular, is this sort of gut-brain connection, and that 90% of serotonin is made in the gut, and they used to think it was all made in the brain, and that you didn't make enough of it. People with clinical depression weren't producing enough serotonin, and now the belief is that in a lot of people, the issue isn't that they're not producing it; it's that it's actually made in the gut and it's not getting to the brain. Right. And in people with gluten sensitivity, that reaction and that kind of inflammation can actually prevent the serotonin from getting to the brain. And so like there's a bunch of books and science around this. And I think that, they're really, the whole field of psychiatric meds is so new comparatively. Right. And like, they're going to eventually, it's going to just get better and better and better. And those meds have been I don't think I'd be here without them. They literally were a lifesaver for me. But what's been very interesting for me has been the shift in diet, the elimination of gluten, and being very, very strict about it. After about 4 months, I started to just kind of feel different when I woke up in the morning, like feel different than I'd ever felt. And it was like, could this be a real thing? Like, could this be, I feel like a different person, in a way that, I don't know, in a way that meds never did for me. And so, meds are, and I'm on them now. And in fact, I did go off them for about a year, for the first time since I was 13, and did fine. And I was terrified. But I also felt like I want to give this a try and see what happens.
Yeah.
And so I tapered them and ended up going off them. And, I did go back on them over the summer. Just, my own life was just stress. There was just a lot of stress, and I was finding that I was coping. I was just having some real bouts of anxiety and some things that I hadn't felt before. And we decided to try a low dose of them again. And it's been a really good choice for me. But yeah, I never want to, it's been interesting. I don't talk about this very much because I feel like it's really irresponsible to go on, say, social media and do a post about like gluten is going to cure your depression. Like I just never, ever, ever, ever want to come off that way, or for my words to be interpreted that way. But I will say that this particular shift for me did make a huge difference. And it's something I never would have believed.
Wow. That's amazing. And I think it's like, I think it just speaks to you said it yourself, like there is so much work to do in just psychiatric medicine, so much still to learn, and I think it's important for us to be our best advocates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm like you, like I have a wheat allergy. I'm on an antidepressant. Like a lot of SSRIs like don't work on me.
Mm-hmm.
I actually took this amazing test called GeneSight, and it tested my blood or genetics essentially. And it like pointed to like, okay, these antidepressants can sort of work. These ones don't, based on my genetics.
That's cool.
Super cool.
That's cool. What I've been on is, I've been pretty lucky with them. Like basically I was on Prozac for 10 years, and then I was on Zoloft for another 10 years. And then Zoloft stopped working. Prozac and Zoloft both stopped working after about a decade. And then I've been on Cymbalta for a decade or so, except for that brief break. And they all have worked pretty well. There was only one that didn't work, that I've tried. And I feel like I've been pretty lucky because I have some friends and know some people who have some real treatment resistant stuff. And that can be so hard. Yeah.
It is hard. It's the whole medication journey, the whole sort of like treating our mental illness is it's like a year by year thing, or it's even like a week by week thing. Cause like I spoke with someone on this show who was doing ketamine for his depression. Right. And I know some people who, microdose mushrooms and, just trying the gamut,
Yeah, I just having moved to Oregon, I was really aware of that Oregon voters just voted to legalize psilocybin for psychiatric use.
I heard.
And that was super exciting. I'm a strong supporter of that idea and that movement.
Yeah. I've been, I actually just earlier this year, I had my first mushroom experience, and it was wonderful, deeply profound. And since then I've been, dabbling with like some microdosing of psilocybin, and it's helped.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about empathy because that's the name of the show, You Me Empathy. But also, I know personally for me, Emily, my empathy has been, let's just call it challenged this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, like, I always kind of talk about empathy as this thing that's a practice, it's a skill, it's something we need to really kind of work on every day and think about. Because I think it's a thing that can be taken for granted. And then, I think about empathy in the context of, for example, here in the United States, we had an election and 70 million people voted for Trump. And I as someone who does not vote for Trump, I was having issues with applying empathy to that context. And I'm wondering how has your empathy practice been, and like how has it looked this year
And you and me
politically?
both.
You don't need to get in
Yeah.
politics, but like whatever you want to talk about.
Well, no, I mean, I make no secret of my politics publicly, so it's totally fine. I mean, yes, I am with you. I am with you that, I struggle to empathize with a point of view of someone who is saying, my individual rights are more important than your life, for example.
Sure.
That's really tough. I think what I try to remind myself, and the position I try to think about how hate is driven by fear, that underneath hate is fear. And that we all are struggling with something. And I think what, the most difficult thing about where we're at sort of, when politically and as a nation is that we're in this place where we no longer agree on what reality is.
Right.
So people who support something different than I support feel that, they look around at their news sources and they feel that they have evidence that supports all of the things that they believe.
Right.
And so it's really, there's someone, I know someone who shifted from being a lifelong liberal to being a Trump supporter. And when she's now, she believes that, she follows the sort of right-wing news sources and is in that world. And so when someone says, well, how do you reconcile Trump's racism or his homophobia? She says he's not racist, he's not homophobic. It's the liberal media that's made him out to be that way. And I don't think he is.
Right.
And so it's so complicated because it's not someone saying, I mean, it's sort of an easier proposition if someone's like, yep, don't like gay people. You're like, okay, well, here we are. Tough to, like,
we're playing the same game at that point, at least.
And this is like, no, I do. No, we both like gay people. I like gay people too. I'm not homophobic. I'm not racist. And I don't think Trump is either, because of XYZ that I'm pointing to that are sources in the news that are reporting differently than mainstream sources in the news. And it's just your head explodes.
Yeah.
Because how do you, I struggle to navigate that. And so it's from a human empathy point of view, it's like recognizing that we're all motivated by the same things, wanting to feel safe,
Mm.
wanting to feel respected, wanting to feel heard. And that fear is underneath so many things.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of like, we all want to feel, we want to be seen. We want to be seen at the end of the day. And when I think about empathy, I think about, the practice of like active listening and really kind of being present for people and listening without prejudgment, without all the baggage we take on. Right. But to your point, it's, when we're playing checkers and they're playing chess or vice versa, we're not speaking the same language,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how do you find the language? Like, is it a matter of more listening? Is it a matter of more showing up? I think it's somewhere in there. I think it's somewhere in the messy gray muck of, what it means to be human, because I think it is fear. I think you're totally right about that. I think there's fear and we're all experiencing a level of it, and breaking down that fear or finding ways to make people feel a little safer is where it's at. But I'm also not saying like, let's agree to disagree, because that's bullshit. I don't agree with that. Like, I don't want to do that. And I'm also cognizant of the fact that, like, I don't want to, I'm like, I don't want to feel like I am the person who's like, right, I'm right, and I'm gonna change your mind, like that. There's like some presumptuous like arrogance in that too that I don't want to hold on to. It's
Mm-hmm.
just messy. It's just messy. Yeah, it's tough. I struggle with it daily, and I'm trying to find space for all of it, because I think empathy is a force for so much good, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about, we mentioned it before, but it's something that's been on my mind because I've been harassed recently online, and it's it's something that sometimes comes with like talking about mental health online. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the space a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel very strongly in, the importance of vulnerability and how vulnerability can be this connecting force and healing force for people. It allows people in, right?
Yeah.
But it's also, I'm very skeptical of how it is used at times, especially on social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
You sort of intimated about this before, like just the influencing, the inauthenticity of like presenting ourselves as these boxes of perfectionism, when in fact, like, what is truly healing and connecting is presenting ourselves as ourselves, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure this is on your mind. You think about daily.
Yeah, for sure.
What, like, how, like, when you're running a business, when you're, part of this business that presents itself as like authentic, showing, our human fallibility, like, how are you having these conversations daily with your team? Are you, mindful of this as you share on social media? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's been the social media journey for us has been interesting because our social media account just started as my personal account.
Right.
And so, I posted every day for many years, my own, writing, captions, thoughts, alongside our products and just it kind of was everything. It was kind of like a a mishmash, and I didn't use hashtags. I didn't do any of the like a lot of the quote unquote, sort of rules that you're supposed to follow about growing a social account. I didn't do that because it didn't feel authentic to me, and I just didn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, it's been now 8 years that I've been doing this, and it's been an interesting line to walk, because one of the things that makes us viable as a company and like makes my employees' jobs secure, for example, is like, if I were to get hit by a bus tomorrow, the company would need to be able to survive without me.
Mm.
And so anytime you have what we call, in business, what we call like single point failure, which is a very dry way of referring to the special magic that one person brings, is considered a detriment, a liability in a business.
Mm.
Because it also means that like I couldn't go on vacation or take time off.
Right.
Because no one who wasn't me could step in and post on our social media account. And people, when they were, we get so many direct messages, and people, because I had named my brand after myself, because in the beginning it was just kind of me in my bedroom and I didn't have a better idea, and it, was definitely not strategic. People believe that they are, talking directly to me and addressing, stuff to me. And,
right.
What's difficult is we've got a company of 30 people, and, I've got a, pretty big job, and, I'm not looking at, we have a community manager on social media. I haven't looked at, every once in a while I get something sent to me, but I'm not the person who's reading all of the direct messages, and I'm not doing customer service. And, a lot of it is, where's my order? And is this back in stock? And yada, yada. And so, but what became difficult was, the brand that social media is really, as a brand, it's a tool to share what we make, and for people to know what we make and see it and buy it, or share it with their friends or whatever. And the transition from being my voice to being a brand voice is something that was really tough for me, that was necessary, that we did this year, where, I actually don't do our social media anymore. And that's by design. And it's because it's a brand voice. And so it's coming from a we, it's not coming from I anymore. And it's not a personal stories about me. And it's not, it's not the same thing it was 3 years ago. And that I needed that separation.
Yeah.
After 7 years of doing a daily post, I was burned out and tired, and my team also needed the stability for the team, for someone else to be able to step in and do it.
Yeah.
And for this thing that is now so not about me, that has my name on it, that actually is we're actually about to change the name of the brand in January.
Wow.
M and Friends. We're shortening it and taking my name off of it.
Nice.
Just to better reflect, who we are as a company now and where we're going in the future, where I'm still involved, but it's not about me, and it was never about me. But because of the way that our social evolved, it was very much our fans and customers really felt like they were talking to me. And that's difficult for customer service. It's difficult. It's just, it was very challenging. And so, yeah, it's a the person as brand thing is a whole other question, that kind of, because the other thing that's happened, of course, over the years, is that I'm 10 years older than I was when I started this thing.
Sure.
And the brand, people like the brand that I made. Like people, like I've tried to kind of do some things over the years to sort of evolve it or make it feel, more like where I am now. And our customers don't want that.
Interesting.
Our customers want the brand I built in 2013. And so for better or for worse, that's what it is, and our customers are younger than me and in a different life stage than me.
Right.
And that's been really interesting as well, and that's another sort of, fallacy. Like that's another angle of like person as brand is that is that a person lives and changes and goes through shit and, and a brand is like, people want the best sellers.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's definitely sort of a weird combo. And I feel like I went on a tangent because I'm sorry, you asked me something about social media specifically.
No, I love it. I love all of that.
Totally not that.
No. I loved it. I think it's so fascinating, the customer's sort of, focus or just want and in the stuff that started Emily McDowell, right? It started the brand, and you being someone who was a reflection of that then and now changing and now, growing as we humans do, not being that. I think that's incredibly vulnerable to talk about, because I think that has to bring up some feelings of I don't know. I mean, I know for me, like that might feel like, I really wanted, I'm proud of where I am now. Like I want to do stuff that reflects the growth, reflects all of this,
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting because, I was, I was single. I was, I was like 35 when I started the company. And even then, people thought, because of the voice of the brand was a bit younger, people assumed then that I was 25, and so I definitely like, there were some media and some things that were like, you're a millennial voice. And I was like, and I'm so not a millennial. Like I'm, there was an assumption that I was younger. And so now what's happening is like, I'm like, in menopause, like I feel like I'm really in a different life stage than a lot of our customers are. And it's strange. I never felt the real presence of aging, or I always, up until honestly just this past year, I always felt like, what connects us as humans is enough. And I have no problem speaking the language of people who are 20 years younger than me. And like, I can do that and whatever. And now I'm like, I don't know. Like now I'm starting to feel like, I'm really starting to feel like, can I keep doing that? What's going to happen here? And I'm not like afraid, like I'm not, it doesn't keep me up at night, but it's definitely a shift in like, oh, there's an experience happening here. People who are 20 years younger than me are having an experience in the world that I don't understand. Like there's a real thing happening here that is not an experience that I can personally relate to.
Yeah.
And so trying to figure out then, if I'm good at my job, because of course if I'm good at my job, I can write to anything. I can find my way into that experience and into the insights in that world enough to be able to speak to it, even if it's not my own personal experience.
Right.
There's plenty of stuff that we make that's not my own personal experience, but because of the brand that we are and what we do, we've been able to speak to those things. And but it's interesting. Like I've felt this for the first time this year. Like, oh, this is a generation, and like shit.
Yeah, I feel you. So, and we could start wrapping up. I know you had a limited window, but I want to know like what that, like, you have Emily McDowell and friends, M and friends coming up. Like, what do you plan on, doing stuff like outside of that realm, so you
I
can
do.
honor yourself,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Yeah.
funny. I do, but I don't know what it is yet. And
Yeah.
I was pushing myself. I noticed last year, I was pushing myself, even though I felt like even though it was sneaky, like it was so insidious, um, because I felt like I wasn't, and then I realized that I was to like sort of set up my next thing, or not that I was going anywhere from this brand, but you know, set up something else on the side, or kind of reinvent or evolve and do so in a public way, or like what's my next thing going to be, and I started an Instagram that is personal, that's called Emily on Life, that I stopped posting to a few months ago, because I realized that it was kind of taking more out of me than it was nourishing, and I
Mm.
didn't have a reason. There was no reason for me to be doing that work unless it was nourishing, because I wasn't monetizing it. You know, I wasn't offering any classes, or, selling anything, or doing anything. So it was like, the reason to do this would be like, if you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
Um, and I wasn't enjoying it, as much as I enjoy other things. And, one of the things that I also kind of started to notice was that most of the reposts, a lot of people were reposting my words and my work, but it was mostly people who were like using it to advertise their coaching business and stuff like that. And I was just like, that's fine, but like, this isn't what I want to be spending my time doing. So I just stopped, and, didn't make a whole big deal out of it. And I may go back to it at some point if I figure out what I want to do with it.
Yeah.
But I really, right now, my instinct is to be like, what's my next thing? What am I going to do? And my practice has been to be like, my next thing is that I'm going to have hobbies for the first time as an adult. Like my next thing is that I'm going to take my boyfriend's kids to soccer practice and like
Yeah.
watch them play soccer. I'm going to cook dinner. And so that practice of having my next thing be outside of the realm of work that's for public consumption has been pretty great to just experience that this year. And I think eventually I'll get bored, or maybe I won't. But like if I do get bored, the door is open for me to do something else on the side. But I have stopped. And if I feel inspired, I'll certainly, move in a direction. But I have stopped pushing myself or expecting that of myself.
That's amazing. I think that's great. I think that's so self-honoring.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels really good. It feels really good to feel okay with that, and to not and to not feel that sort of humming anxiety of like, I'm not doing enough, or I'm not being enough, or and just sort of be okay with what is.
That's I mean, that's where we should all end up, loving what is, just being in that space. Yeah, I hear you. All right, let's wrap up. We always wrap up the show, Emily, talking about our empathy heroes. These are people in our lives who are empathetic, feely, sensitive, just compassionate humans. I will go first to give you a moment to think about your empathy hero. My empathy hero this week is maybe you know her, Lisa Congdon, a friend.
I just got off the phone with her.
Oh, that's hilarious.
We're
Yeah.
working on a project together. She's a good friend of mine. That's really fun.
Wonderful. She's wonderful. And she's been on the show. We're actually working on a project together that hopefully happens, but who knows? But she's wonderful. And I just wanted to shout out her new book that is coming out in March called You Will Leave a Trail of Stars. That's available for pre-order right now. Support Lisa. Feely Humans. She is wonderful, so generous of spirit, and so talented. So empathy hero Lisa Congdon.
She is wonderful. I have a quote in that book too.
Oh,
that
amazing!
She covered of mine. Yeah, yeah. It's going to be a great book. I've seen it. A little advanced galley, and it's going to be really wonderful.
Exciting.
Lisa is great. My empathy hero is a friend of mine, an author, and retreat leader, and just all around amazing human being named Jen Pasteloff. And Jen wrote a book called On Being Human that came out last year. That is a really beautiful memoir of her sort of journey from being a career waitress in Los Angeles to becoming a writer, teaching yoga, becoming a writer, becoming a different version of herself. And she's also experienced hearing loss as she's gotten older, and so that's a part of it. And she's a tremendous writer, and she gives so much of herself. She did a series of Instagram lives for the first, I think, 3 months of the pandemic, where she raised something like $150,000 that went directly to grocery cards for people who were hungry. She just does a tremendous amount of volunteer community-based work. She leads retreats and does scholarships, and now has started to do online classes, and just started her own podcast. She's just Jennifer Pasteloff. She is just like an amazing human being, and someone who's a good friend, and someone who I aspire to be more like in generosity of spirit.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we clearly have the same friends, because Jen has also been on this show. The first time, so I took one of her workshops last year, like I guess it was late last year. Anyways, and then we were going to do the episode like in person in Ojai, and then we were both kind of exhausted, and so fast forward like a week, and I'm inside of her tiny apartment in Santa Monica doing this show with her, and then I just got to hang out with Charlie and Robert and for like a couple of hours, and she's the best. She's so and On Being Human is phenomenal. So I agree.
Yeah. That's great. I love that. That's so cool. I had no idea. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was just speaking of her generosity. She was like, "Here, I made this ginger soup," and I was eating her ginger soup. It was funny. All right. Well, Emily, where can the Feely Humans out there connect with you, buy all of the things, that stuff?
So our website is emilymcdowell.com, which soon to be emandfriends.com. And that's happening in January. But if you go to emilymcdowell.com, it'll auto forward you, or do whatever that word is. Redirect. That's it. It'll redirect. So M and Friends, and we're going to be on our new social handle is going to be at M and Friends on Instagram. We are no longer on Facebook. We're no longer posting to Facebook as a brand, and we don't tweet, but Instagram is where we're at. And my personal Instagram is Emily on Life. It is dormant at the moment, but I will do something with it someday. But that's where you can find me as a separate entity from the brand. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, listeners, all of those links will be in the show notes for this episode. Emily, thank you so much for being a part of You Me Empathy. It was wonderful.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Yeah, you're welcome. And to you listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring, pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You Me Empathy.